Folks, we're back. I'm your host, BKP. That was a great segment with Beth Bennett, Tax Tips, H&R Block, Beth Bennett. Now, we're going to go back, and I'm sorry for the confusion earlier that my pauses. I guess I'll take the heat on this one, okay? Because I can feel the heat all around me. The heat is on, right? Yes, that's exactly right. So yesterday, let's go to the video, and we're talking about trade, okay? And let's go ahead and go to that video and start there at 8:12, and I'll tell you where to stop, okay?
Thank you, Mr. President. You spoke about North Korea in the Oval Office, so I'd like to turn to trade, if I could. My understanding is that the Prime Minister came to you with a message from the European Union Commission President saying, if you put tariffs on steel and aluminum, we'll slap you back with punitive tariffs on bourbon and jeans and the motorcycles that you talk about from Wisconsin. Are you still planning on going ahead with these tariffs? There are some people in your party who have suggested it's not a good idea. And Prime Minister Levine, what's your perspective on tariffs, and what message did you convey to the President from Sweden and from the European Union? Thank you.
Well, the United States has been taken advantage of by other countries, both friendly and not so friendly, for many, many decades. And we have a trade deficit of $800 billion a year. And that's not going to happen with me. We have been mistreated by many, sometimes fairly, but there are really very few instances where that's taken place. And I don't blame the countries. I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen. When I was with President Xi in China, as an example, we lose $500 billion a year on trade. We have a deficit of approximately $500 billion a year with China. And we're doing things with China which are very strong, but they understand it. But I was with him, and I said to him in public, I said, look, I'm not blaming you. I blame our people for not doing a better job, for allowing this to happen. But it's like that with many countries other than smaller. The European Union has been particularly tough on the United States. They make it almost impossible for us to do business with them, and yet they send their cars and everything else back into the United States. And they can do whatever they'd like, but if they do that, then we put a big tax of 25% on their cars, and believe me, they won't be doing it very long. The European Union has not treated us well, and it's been a very, very unfair trade situation. I'm here to protect, and one of the reasons I was elected is I'm protecting our workers, I'm protecting our companies, and I'm not going to let that happen. So we're doing tariffs on steel. We cannot lose our steel industry. It's a fraction of what it once was. And we can't lose our aluminum industry, also a fraction of what it once was. And our country's doing well. The massive tax cuts and all of the deregulation has really kicked us into gear. But I have to work on trade deals. We're working on NAFTA right now. And if we're able to make a deal with Canada and Mexico in NAFTA, then there will be no reason to do the tariffs with Canada and Mexico. But again, other countries, we won't have that choice, and unless they can do something for us. As an example, if the European Union takes off some of the horrible barriers that make it impossible for our product to go into there, then we can start talking. Otherwise, we're going to leave it the way it is. So the fact is, we've been mistreated as a country for many years, and it's just not going to happen any longer.
How do you avoid this escalating? How do you avoid this escalating into a trade war? Well,
we'll have to see. You know, when we're behind on every single country, trade wars aren't so bad. Do you understand what I mean by that? When we're down by 30 billion, 40 billion, 60 billion, 100 billion, the trade war hurts them, doesn't hurt us. So we'll see what happens. You know, you can also take it, in some cases, we lose on trade, plus we give them military, where we're subsidizing them tremendously. So not only do we lose on trade, we lose on military. So, and hence we have these massive deficit numbers in our country. we're going to straighten it out. And we'll do it in a very loving way. It'll be a loving, loving way. They'll like us better, and they will respect us much more. Because even they say, right now, they say, we can't believe we've gotten away. I mean, 2 countries have said, we cannot believe, to be honest with you, we've gotten away with this so long. Now, one of them made that statement before I got elected. He said, I can't believe I made that statement before I got elected. But it's one of those things. We have to straighten it out. We really have no choice.
And Mr. Prime Minister, how forceful was your message to the President on what the consequences will be if he goes ahead with tariffs?
Now, first, trade is a European Union mandate, so we're a member of the good solution.
Just to add maybe a little bit further, if you talk China, I've watched where the reporters have been writing 2% of our steel comes from China. Well, that's not right. They transship all through other countries. And you'll see that a country that doesn't even have a steel mill is sending us 3% steel for our country. And many countries are doing it, but it comes from China. So China doesn't send us 2%. They send us a much, much higher level than that. But it's called transshipping. So it doesn't look good when it all comes out of China, so they send it through other countries, and it comes to us. And it's putting our steel mills out of business. Our aluminum mills are going out of business. And we need steel, and we need aluminum. And you know, there's a theory that if a country doesn't have steel, it doesn't have a country. And it's true. So this is more than just pure economics. This is about defense. This is about the country itself. But again, remember this, we lose $800 billion a year in trade. And I think I was elected at least partially on this issue. And I've been saying it for 25 years. Our country's been taken advantage of by everybody. By everybody, almost everybody. And we cannot let that happen any longer. Not for our companies and not, most importantly, for our workers. So we're not going to let it happen. Please.
Okay, Tina, TT News 8.
Okay, folks, before we get to Amanda's segment here at 9:30, Amanda always has a segment at 9:30. Before we get to that, let's go over a couple quick things here. Transshipping. Now, if you actually knew how much steel was dumped into this country from China, it's an amazing amount of steel that gets dumped here. And it's like he said, the media is going to float out that only 2% of our steel comes from China. But we get steel from these countries that don't even have steel mills, don't even have steel, but we receive it from other countries. It's called transshipping. I want to know if you've heard transshipping anywhere else, that other countries ship steel, that China uses other countries to ship steel, okay, so that you don't see how much they're actually dumping into this country, or it's not reported. All right, it's just not going to happen any longer, and we've been mistreated. Won't happen anymore. A trade war. Look, folks, don't get nervous. The guy at the head of this ship, Donald J. Trump, knows what he's talking about. Do not get nervous. They need us. They need the American customer. Still in the world, they need the customer right here, you. So don't get nervous. I promise. And every time you hear, every single time you hear that, every single time that you hear that the Trump, the steel tariffs did not work, that George W. Bush put in place in 2002, don't forget the globalists that ran that White House. There's a reason it didn't work. Every day at 9:30 now, we have a segment, it's just called Amanda. And I never know, did you tell me to go to 30 seconds in?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let's welcome Amanda to her segment this morning. And if you've not met him, Oh, you had to wave. You want to do it again? I mean, oh my gosh.
We're live here on the 13th floor of the production room.
There's no 13th floor. There's no. I tell you, you just gave it away. You're not from the city.
Yeah.
Do you realize you go to New York City and you go to the elevator and there's no 13th floor? Did you know that?
Are you talking about the John Cusack movie?
No.
There's 13 floors.
No, there's not.
Why?
They don't put a button. They don't put a button 13.
I've never heard of that.
God, folks. I'm serious. You Google how many New York City buildings.
Why?
Just because I asked. I asked nicely.
No, why? Why is there not a 13th floor?
Yeah, who wants to live on the 13th floor?
That makes no sense. Why?
All right, folks, first of all, we just want to let you know at fetchyournews.com and our production studio, I do not force these people to work on the 13th floor. Okay, if you're worried about them, she's on the 14th or the 12th, but not the 13th.
Okay, and I come in this morning and he proceeds to tell me that he is the greatest boss.
Is this a tell-all segment? I mean, when we when we started at 9:30 this segment, I said anything you want to do, but I'm going to have to send a list. You're going to have to, huh?
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Take it away, Amanda. What are we talking about this morning?
All right, so I think Monday we talked about Jimmy Kimmel.
Yes.
And we talked about, he ran his mouth and has no knowledge of, Oscar, and that the little Oscar award is actually a man. He also doesn't remember his show, The Man Show, which you stole my thunder on earlier anyway.
I stole thunder?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. Okay, so I wanted
Kiss did a song called God of Thunder for you kids out there.
Yeah, okay. So Jimmy Kimmel wants to come across as he supports feminism, or he is a feminist himself because he wishes he wasn't a man anymore. So I wanted to play a little video about Jimmy Kimmel.
Go to the tape.
Almost every year now, all thanks to the woman's suffrage movement. Led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, pioneers in the field of bitching, moaning, and complaining. But after all their struggle and sacrifice, how many women today even know what the word suffrage means? We hit the streets to find out. How long is this going to go on? Ladies, unite against suffrage. End the suffraging now. We're trying to stop the suffrage and the suffrage of women in this country. Sir?
I would be happy to sign.
Thank you very much. You've saved the dolphins. Now let's stop the suffrage. I do this for personal reasons. My mother, two of my aunts, and my sister all suffraged last year.
Tell me what the 19th Amendment is.
The 19th Amendment is very unjust.
Men are going to help us stop
Men
suffrage?
and women
These
to
men
stop
are.
this.
I'm not sure about this guy.
What about male suffrage?
No, that's okay.
The ignorance is really the big problem with this country.
Ignorance is bliss.
What am I signing?
3 American flags here. Collect them and trade them. Help us end the suffraging and get a merit badge.
Maybe one day you won't be pimping those cookies all day, We'd like you to sign this petition to stop women's suffrage. We could get these kids some clothes. It's the young people in America that are going to help change.
Whereabouts in Nam are you from?
I'm from Huy.
Boy, you know a guy named Jeff?
I'm totally confused.
We want to stop the suffraging in this country.
Isn't suffrage women's right to vote?
Confidential, yeah.
Pretty confident. So you're trying to stop women's right to vote?
Thank you very much.
We're trying to end.
They're saying stop women's right to vote.
You two guys look like the ones that are making us suffer.
Well, tell me what it is. You stop. You're making fun of yourself.
There are many causes in the world.
You're absurd. You're a joke. You're both a joke. Goodbye.
And what is it?
Yeah. we want to put an end to it, and your signature's going to help us.
I want you to be a little more clear for us.
Well, if we could get a signature, we can hurry up and end the suffrage, and we could all go home.
Are you in a relationship with a woman?
Are you coming on to me?
No.
Thanks. Could I get a hug? Thank you.
How come it's a man who's doing this?
Because we
what
care.
happened to the women?
The women are lazy, it turns out. Would you like to help us?
Why not?
Because, quite frankly, I mean, we like to take a little break. If you wouldn't mind walking around with this.
Hello, would you like to sign for the what was this?
Suffering of women in this
Suffrage.
country?
See, nobody understands this word. You have to explain the word.
You're right. But
No, this is offensive. Women's suffrage is the right for women to vote.
No.
Suffrage gives
That's why I'm
women the
asking
right
them
to
to explain and
vote.
they-
They're making fun of you.
Really?
No,
I'm not a registered voter.
that's all right. Are you an American?
I'm broke.
Stop suffrage now.
Okay. So you've exposed me to that this morning. Can you explain?
I think that Jimmy Kimmel should go back to juggies and trampolines instead of politics.
Juggies and trampolines?
Yep. Hey, he's actually better at it. He's not funny when he's talking politics at all.
Well, I actually, I don't understand why he left the rails with the political thing to begin with Jimmy Kimmel because, did he not? He does realize we have the video of, the juggies, right? That was actually the name of the women that he had come out.
Yeah.
Right?
It was ridiculous.
I didn't watch the show.
I hope not.
No, I didn't watch the show. I thought it was. I didn't.
I would really hope not.
Okay. You have anything else there from the 13th floor?
I don't. I'm actually saving my best story of the week for tomorrow.
You're saving your best story of the week for tomorrow.
I am.
So let me just say this before we end your segment. We're going to take a quick commercial. We're going to come back and wrap up the show. Let me just say, this Kimmel guy really bothers you, doesn't he?
He does. He does. If it's not obvious. No, I'll tell you too. I used to like Jimmy Kimmel pre-Donald Trump because he wasn't so, in your face and political.
So you used to like him pre-Donald Trump?
Yes.
But this guy really gets under your skin now because somehow, someday, you work an anti-Jimmy Kimmel comment into your segment or the show somewhere throughout the day.
Twice this week.
We're going to take a brief break. This is Amanda. Amanda runs the studio in there, and her and Sam, and Amanda's our producer of the show every morning, and she's coming on at 9:30 and doing a segment, and then you hear her from time to time agreeing with me every once in a blue moon, but most of the time correcting me.
Really?
Also. Really, right.
Really?
What? You'll agree with me every once in a while, not on live air. I mean, you don't tell the folks you agree with me because you don't want people, you don't want to have to admit it.
Yeah.
So, and then you come in this morning and I was telling you how I'm the best boss ever in the world.
You told me you were the best boss
Yes,
ever.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a clip straight out of The Office, Michael Scott.
I know.
I'm your host. When we come back, the White House is a perfect place to work. Everybody's trying to get in there. And the Russian, you just cannot have a press conference without talking about the Russian collusion or the manipulation, Russia's manipulating our elections. I'm your host, BKP. We'll be back to wrap up our show right after this.